Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Jessica Abernathy, and with me today is Trisha Montgomery, and you are listening to Pets Are Family.
Hello,
Hi,
Jessica.
Trisha. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. We got a lot coming down. We're back to back on episodes, and we're talking about pet cancer
Yes, we are, all month long.
all month long. We've been talking about it for a while now, and um, I think the more that I have delved into this, Jessica, and you and I have talked about this, the more that I'm seeing stories of friends whose dogs have passed away. Cancer just doesn't obviously affect pets. It affects our families and, the things that we go through on a personal side as well, not just dealing with our pets, but also our families.
It does.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I think learning more about that and what's happening within the realm of both veterinary medicine and human medicine, and just thinking about it from a pet parent side of that, and realizing that, also from the human side, our own parents or our children, or even, us, their cancer is impacting so many of us. And it's going to be interesting to talk to Dr. Becca and hear what she has to say regarding this Nu-Q test and early detection. Are there also tests happening right now in human medicine, Jessica? Is that right?
I believe so. You know what I mean? I believe there are, but I mean, I'm not, I think there's a cure, but, I think there's a cure, but I mean, it's a business, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a,
Who was it?
there's, it, medicine's a business, you know what I mean? So, they're not
It
going to make
is.
money they're not going to make money if they find the cure.
This is true. I'd like to think otherwise, but I think we're kind of right about that. Yeah, definitely so. Definitely so.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I think, and like I think we all know someone who's been touched by cancer. We all know somebody who has a family member who has a husband, a father, whoever, or a friend who is touched by cancer. Yeah, it's interesting, and you wonder, why is cancer? Or are we finding out more about cancer now because there's more information, or that we have more accessibility to knowledge? Why do you think we're finding out more about pet cancer now, Jessica?
I think we're finding out more than we did before, just because it's there's more ways to communicate. I mean, social media has changed everything.
It
You know, you
has.
can't, you can't, I mean, think about it. When we were kids, I mean, there's no such thing as a cell phone. I mean, we didn't have cell phones. I mean, you came home
Yes,
and the
family.
street lights came on, you know what I mean? And everybody's mom could beat the shit out of you. Excuse me, sorry, didn't mean to swear. Sorry, Apple. You know what I mean? I mean, everybody's mom could hit you. You know what I mean? Now it's like your mom texts you. You can't come home. I mean, 5-year-olds got a cell phone now. Everybody's got electronics. You
It's
communicate
true.
with your family through Facebook, Twitter. Everything like that. You keep in touch with people through social media, TikTok, you know what I mean? You digitally keep in touch with people. You don't travel to see people anymore. So it's just different. You know what I mean? Everybody's got a camera. It's a different world than before. I
It's
mean,
totally.
I went into Whole Foods the other day and I was like, it asked me if I wanted to use my palm to pay.
Get the fudge out of here! Almost.
Yeah, I
No,
know.
you are
Hmm.
lying. What do you mean?
Yeah, you can pay with your palm now.
Oh, you have a chip
Yeah.
in your hand? Scan it from your palm?
Yeah, it
Stop.
does it. I'm not
No.
kidding you. Yeah.
No. That's
Yeah.
crazy. I
Hmm.
don't want that.
Yeah.
I
I
do not
mean,
want
it's
that
just,
at all.
yeah. The movies that we watched as kids about stuff like that is coming true. You know what I mean? It's, it's, it's a different world. I mean, when we were kids, just, the next thing you know, I mean, by the time you and I have grandchildren, you know what I mean? We're
Never.
going to be talking
That's
on our
never for
wrist,
me.
you know? Yeah,
That's going to be
it
a big
is,
never for me. I will
you
never have
know.
grandchildren. Hello, Gabrielle, Jonathan, if you're listening, that would be amazing. But however, I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, iRobot's going to be your next thing, I
Well,
mean,
yeah, and yeah, all the thing. You're right. You're right about that. It's interesting to see where we're going, and then the dilemmas right now with social media, and the influence that social media is having on our children and mental health and everything like that. But surely I digress. We are here to talk about pet cancer. It is November. It is Pet Cancer Awareness Month. And we're talking to Dr. Becca Timmons. She is with Volition Veterinarian. She is the lead research scientist at Volition Veterinary. And I'm so pleased and honored to have her on our podcast today. So, Jessica, what are you going to do?
I'm going to go get her. Let's go, go, go.
Dr. Rebecca Timmons, thank you for joining us on Pets Our Family. Such an honor and a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
So just a question. You're a veterinarian, is that correct?
Yes, yes. So I do get this question a lot. I am a veterinarian.
Okay.
I'm just also a research scientist. So I got
Okay.
dual action going on. Right now, I'm the research director for Volition Veterinary. I basically help guide and manage their research department and various research studies, which I know we'll be talking about our cancer screening tests and whatnot later. But
Yeah.
essentially, been in research for almost 14 years now. Started off in microbiology, then clinical sciences, and dipped into nanoengineering at one point because why not? And now back into the veterinary research world. But I have been in general practice seeing dogs, cats, exotic pets for about 6.5 years now.
What was the most exotic of exotic pets that you ever saw?
Um, that is a great question. I mean, I've seen anything from like prairie dogs to hedgehogs to iguanas, Chinese water dragons, fish. Essentially, if it can fit through the door and is legal to own, I'll see it.
Wow. Okay. I
Very
always find that
cool.
interesting. The different pets that people have, right, Jessica?
It's very cool.
Yeah. Um, so research science, veterinary medicine, did you always want to be a veterinarian, or did you kind of say, this is what I want to do, this is my passion? How did you become a veterinarian?
Yeah, I'm kind of part of that classic category of growing up wanting to be a veterinarian, wanting to work with animals. At the time I called it a doggy doctor. I love dogs. I love all animals, but dogs are definitely my favorite. Very cliche, very classic. But it
Right.
was the research aspect I wasn't anticipating to enjoy and get into, and kind of got into that in undergrad unexpectedly, and really developed a passion for both as I got older. And so as I started my career, I really wanted to make sure I stayed with both. And so for a while, it was kind of doing general practice and research on the side, and contract research which was very interesting. The last couple of years, I was kind of doing contract of both because I was a relief veterinarian helping out clinics so they didn't have to close down when the veterinarian wants to take some time off. So, but this now I can finally do veterinary research, which is amazing. So glad I found a role that I can finally merge both passions.
Oh, I bet they're so glad that they have you, and we're glad that we have you too. Um, so your research in Volition Veterinary, and this is we're talking about pet cancer and November Pet Cancer Awareness Month, and this is March, and you're going to be joining us on the webinar on November 2nd. But my question for you is, what's cancer? Really, what is cancer?
Yeah, this is a great question. This is something I get all the time in general practice. Cancer itself, the most basic way I can explain it is it's really just abnormal growth of cells that should not be growing that way. And that can either invade tissue locally or even spread to other locations if it's more aggressive. The hard part about cancer is it is technically a very broad term that actually encompasses
Right.
hundreds of diseases, right? Sometimes cancer can just be used to describe only aggressive diseases that invade tissue and spread to other sites. But technically speaking, even benign tumors are abnormal growth of cells, and could also be considered under that cancer umbrella, um, in a sense.
So when you look at cancer in pets, what does cancer in pets look like? If you're to really put a broad range on it and say, this is what it looks like, what does it look like?
Yeah, and that's again great follow up. That's another question I commonly get asked owners is like, well, how do I know that my pet has cancer? What do I look for at
Yeah.
home? And again, the hard part is it is really many different diseases. So that means unfortunately it can also look like a variety of things. From maybe it's a new lump or bump you find on the pet, maybe they're just suddenly lethargic, maybe unintentional weight loss, their appetite's not great. Sometimes chronic intermittent, vomiting or diarrhea. And so what I more so is tell owners when they ask me that question is like, well, let's talk about what are things to look out for so that you know to come in and see me or even go to an ER. What is urgent versus emergent, especially with the veterinary industry being so overwhelmed. I don't want in order to feel like
Yeah.
that they have to go to an ER if they don't need to. So urgent, seeing, shortly with your general practice veterinarian, your primary care veterinarian, if you see a new lump or bump on the pet, as long as it's not growing really rapidly or looking infected, I would definitely call your primary care vet. If they're just kind of not eating great, but still eating, change in appetite, if there's any change in their thirst or urination, they're still drinking, they're still
Right.
urinating, but that changes. Unexplained weight loss, that chronic vomiting or diarrhea, those would be probably all urgent that could hopefully, call your primary vet and just make sure you can see them for that. More emergent things I'd be very concerned about, that means take to probably an emergency hospital situation. If they suddenly have like white or pale gums, they should look nice and pink. I mean, you can look at your own gum color and it should look nice and pink. If they're suddenly
Check
severely
your.
lethargic, yeah, I know. I was like, check the gum color. Um, if they're suddenly severely lethargic, if they're
Yeah.
fainting, if they can't catch their breath, coughing, vomiting, diarrhea with significant blood in it, any overt bleeding that you can't get to stop obviously as well.
Right.
And, if they haven't urinated for more than 24 hours or nonstop severe vomiting diarrhea. So those are things where I'm like, hey, if these are pretty severe, we should probably get you seen ASAP. And some general practitioners they have an emergency service associated with them where they you can always call your primary care, but those would be cases where I'd be having in the back of your head at least like, hey, I might end up going to the ER for this.
Yeah, thank you. When I'll relay a story. Whenever Moose was diagnosed, I had been away at an event for 2 days and came back, and then the babysitter Kennedy said, "You not been as active, and food." And I came home and put my arms around him and was, as we rub and lug and, tug on our dogs and love them. And I found those 4 nodes and they had not been there before. And it was very sudden, very, very sudden. And then I found 3 more when kind of doing the pat down on, on his tummy and on his hind legs. And so, is that, I guess, more common than not, or is it sudden? I know hemangiosarcoma is something that is very, very sudden, but Moose had stage 4 lymphoma, and by the time we caught it was too late. But does that happen often, I guess?
Yeah, I would say when I see stage 4 lymphoma, especially, it's usually very sudden onset for the owner. There's been numerous times where I find swollen lymph nodes incidentally on exam. Usually that's when they're kind of lower stage or grade, and we catch it a little bit earlier. But when owners notice those lumps or bumps at home around the lymph nodes, around the jaw, in front of the shoulder, behind the knees, those are sometimes under the armpits. Those are the most common places owners will call and say, hey, there's like a golf ball under my dog's chin or in front of their shoulder. And that's when we're like, hey, we probably need to see them soon. But that's usually, unfortunately, the more common presentation as you described.
Yeah, well, you mentioned something very key there, and you talked about, catching it early. So, talk a little bit about that because you are part of Volition Veterinary, and there is a pre-cancer test available. How does that, what is it, and let's talk about that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, as far as catching things early, one important aspect of that is just your annual wellness exam. Your vet is able to palpate those lymph nodes and kind of tease them out a little bit better than when they're that severely enlarged from something like stage 4 lymphoma. So we palpate those on exam. We kind of feel their belly. We get their temperature. We just kind of do their general wellness check. A lot of these times it's including screening blood work, right? We're looking at their red blood cell count, their white blood cell count, their liver and kidney values, just kind of a general annual blood check, right? And part of that now that Volition Veterinary offers is we have our Nu.Q cancer screening test that can be done with this wellness blood work. Because I emphasize to owners, the hard part about normal blood work outside of our Nu.Q test, when you go in and get your normal blood work done, not all cancer is going to come up on that blood work, right? That blood work is telling you about organ function, if their white blood cell and red blood cell count are normal, things like that, that sometimes can indicate there are certain types of cancers going on internally, but not always going to pop up on that. Our Nu.Q test is a screening test that we can use to try to catch these early. And essentially what the Nu.Q test is it's measuring something called nucleosomes. So essentially, as I'd said, cancer is just a broad term for abnormal growth of cells.
Yeah.
Now, nucleosomes are essentially, every cell has DNA, right? And so as a cell grows, it's naturally going to grow to a point where it dies, and it releases fragments of this DNA called nucleosomes into the bloodstream. Now, so every human, every pet has nucleosomes in the bloodstream, but the body should be able to recycle these and take care of them easily. So they should be undetectable or very, very low levels. Now, with cancer, you have this abnormal growth of cells, which means you have abnormal cell turnover and you have more cells dying that should be. So the body can't keep up with it. So those nucleosomes go up, and that's what we're measuring. So essentially, internally, when we have those cancers that we can't always see like those lumps and bumps on the outside, we can pick that up on general screening.
So sorry, I'm gonna ask my question.
Yeah, that's okay.
Is the system destroying itself, or is it keeping, similar to humans in our immune system? Is it like a Pac-Man? Waka waka waka. Is it eating the good stuff to keep the bad stuff, or is it just multiplying more of the cells, the cancer cells?
One question at a time, girlfriend. One question at a time. That's 4 questions. One
I need
question
all
at a
those
time.
answers right now.
Are you saying that the abnormal growth of cells, is that what we're talking about? Are you asking how it gets
Yeah.
cleared from the body?
Yes, correct.
Both of those? So
Those. I'm
that's
talking
fine.
about it from a standpoint. I guess I want to understand more from a pet parent perspective, because that was a lot of big words.
That was big
And
words. I apologize. I get into my science nerd mode.
and I want to know from a standpoint, from a pet parent in layman's terms,
Yes.
what's really happening? Is it destroying itself? Is it weakened? Are the cancer cells overtaking?
So essentially what's happening when those abnormal cells are growing, normal cells as they grow, they have a check and balance system. So normal cells, whether that be your organ cells or skin cells, they release hormones and chemicals and stuff so that way they're not kind of overtaking the cells next to them. And they have this nice check and balance system. Cancer cells don't have that. So they'll kind of grow over each other. They'll be abnormal shapes and sizes. They'll keep multiplying when they shouldn't be multiplying. And so that's essentially why we get these cancerous cells, is that that check and balance system is completely obliterated. And so it can be really severe abnormal check and balance system. So that makes it more aggressive, where it can invade tissue locally. It can spread. It can be a little less so. So then we get those slower growing tumors. It really just depends on the type, which cell is originating from it, and the type of cancer it is. And so that's that abnormal cell growth. But because they're all growing abnormally, you get higher growth, but you're also getting some of those cells are dying because that check and balance system is just not in place anymore. So again, our healthy normal cells, they have a natural lifespan, right? They're going to grow, they're going to die, they're going to get replaced. And those release those nucleosome proteins. But your body can normally keep those at a very low level because of the checks and balances in it. So your organs can filter those out. The rest of your body can kind of clear that healthy normal. It's kind of like when you get blood work and you have your liver values, there's a normal reference range, right? Nucleosomes is going to be kind of similar. We expect it to be below a certain amount, and that's considered normal. It's just with these cancer cells, they're turning over at such a rapid rate. They're releasing way more in the bloodstream that the body can keep up with on taking care and getting that out of the bloodstream. And so that level is going to raise, kind of like when you have a high kidney value or high liver value. Again, we have those normal reference range of liver and kidney values. It's just when the body can't keep up with that enzyme turnover, or that organ's very upset and releasing more of those proteins or enzymes that we measure on blood work, it's going to show up on blood work. And then we're like, oh, that's not in the normal reference range. And so we should be concerned about that.
Thank you. I find this fascinating. I really do, and I think Jessica does as well. And I think there's personal things on both of our sides from a human perspective and canine perspective as well. That it's just to learn more about it and understand, I think, is key. For the new, you mentioned the NUCI test. Does it detect all cancers, or is there only a couple does it detect all of them?
That's a great question, and again, another common one that I get. So it does detect the most common type. It detects some of the most common type of scary internal cancers. So again, cancer is a broad term with a wide range of diseases. So the short answer is no. But again, because it's a broad term, and we know that as veterinarians, there's going to be certain tumors where you're going to probably want to get a biopsy or poke it with a needle and get cell sample that way, right? Like if you have a lump on a pet, you probably want to get a direct biopsy because that's going to be easiest. And you can see that, the owners can see when that pops up. The concern with these internal cancers like hemangiosarcoma or lymphoma, owners can't always see that, and those lymph nodes, although, Moose had those external lymph nodes swollen, there's a bunch of internal lymph nodes as well. And sometimes those are the ones that are affected by lymphoma, and owners can't see that. So the good news is that our test does screen for and detect some of those most common internal scary cancers, which I think is definitely most practical and most important, especially, as me as a veterinarian and also as a pet parent.
Dr. Timmons, at what age, first of all, at what age can you begin to detect for cancer? Can you start doing it when they're, their first well check? Is that something to do, or how often would you do those?
So typically we recommend to start in senior pets. We think that's the most practical, when they're about 7 or 8 years old, and in all breeds. But there are certain breeds that are just more prone to cancers. Think of, unfortunately, our friendly golden retrievers. They tend to be a little bit more prone to it. Bernese Mountain Dogs, Labs, boxers. There are certain breeds that are just a lot more prone to cancer, and we do recommend starting that screening younger.
Why is that? Why are certain breeds predisposed to pet cancer? And if I'm considering getting a dog, would I want to consider getting the most popular dog in the US, the Labrador Retriever or the Golden Retriever? Why? Why is that?
Well, there's a few different reasons we see it more commonly in these breeds. One, it's unfortunately there's an overbreeding issue with that. There's a pure genetic thing related to that.
Mm-hmm.
Pets are living so much longer now too. We're just seeing cancer more often in breeds as a whole, but now that we're doing more studies and be able to detect it better, and more research behind cancer and understanding the different types and the different treatments, I think we're just able to detect it better, and especially in these very popular breeds. And when we have these purebred animals, they do tend to be a little bit more prone to certain health issues, unfortunately. And with what I tell owners is every breed is going to have its problems, unfortunately. So it's a matter of just knowing what you're getting in for, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't get a golden retriever. They're the sweetest dog, but it just knows that it's just good to know what you're getting in for, and what they may be predisposed to. Because again, unfortunately nowadays any breed is going to have its predisposition. It's going to be prone to some sort of issue, whether that be cancer or hip issues or teeth issues or allergies.
Yeah.
So it's just, know what you're getting in for it and prepare accordingly, right?
Yeah. I just read a story, and maybe you saw it too, of the dog who lived to be 37 years old. Wasn't he from Portugal or something like that?
Yeah,
And
I
the
think he
reason
was.
why the owner said he lived so long, and the man had actually gotten him when he was 8 years old. And what was it? He said he was never on a leash. He ate what we ate, and he just ran, and he was on a farm. And the guy said, this is how he lived to be healthy. So something to think about. So we're all aware of, there's a sustainability. A lot of people are talking about toxicity in toys, in nylons, or in plastics. And for years we've talked about the things that go into our dogs' mouths, in their tummies, and the food that they're eating, but we really haven't thought about what they're chewing on. Do you believe that that might be causing that toxicity, or why are we seeing more cancer in pets?
No, I think that's a great question. I think I think everyone wants to find something to blame for cancer. I mean, I would love if we could find the one thing or two things that are causing cancer, and we can just eliminate that from the environment, right? But we do know that certain things can put people at high risk for cancer. In animals, I think there's still a lot of investigation on what external things can actually cause that, or not even necessarily cause, but just predispose them a little bit more. Right now, the biggest thing we're aware of is one, genetics, and two, I think the hard part is again, pets are just living so much longer. I
Right.
think owners are doing such a phenomenal job taking care of their pets, and now we're just seeing them live out their full lifespans. And just like in humans who enter those final stretches of their life, the things that tend
Yeah.
to lead to death, unfortunately, tends to be cancer or organ failure, right? And so I think that's another reason we're just and we're also doing better on the science end of things. We're able to detect it better. We're able to understand it better and understand treatments better, and early detection better. So I think and on top of that, owners are taking their pets to the vet more too. So we're just seeing more
Mhm.
prevalence, just because again, owners are just doing a phenomenal job.
I love that. I love it. Shout out to all the pet parents out there. Jessica, how old is Teddy? How old's Teddy now?
He'll be 13 in December.
That's
December 1st.
amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He's
Wow.
got a few issues. He's kind of, is he blind, or you having some issues seeing, right? Few?
Yeah, he's 80% blind. Yep. And
Wow.
we just had a lump on the back of his jaw biopsied.
Oh, oh
So no, it
no.
was good. It was all right. It came back negative, so we're good.
Okay,
So
good.
it was just, yeah, we're good. We're good. He's
Yeah, it's like
blind.
you
He's
scared
sassy.
me.
Nah,
We
he's
got
good.
our, we
We're
got our
good.
paws crossed.
No, I have a Shih Tzu. He's just as sassy. He might run into the walls, but he lets us all know. He lets us know that he's sassy. You
Oh,
know.
I'm a sucker for the small dogs. It's so funny. I always thought I
Yep.
was going to be a big dog person, and I've acquired all these tiny dogs, and I'm like, well, here I am in life, and I love them.
No,
Speaking of
he's
that,
sassy.
Dr. Timmons, how many dogs do you have? What kind of dog? Tell us about your pets and what makes them family.
So I have a zoo at home. I have three dogs, a parrot, a tortoise, and two geckos. And but the
Okay.
dog wise, they're all acquired, of course. The best pets are. I have a little Yorkie Maltese mix. She's 5. Her name's Pixie. I have a I think she's like a Maltese Bichon something mix, but her name's Bella. She just turned 12, and I got her in college actually, so she's my OG. And then I have little Archie. He's got to be like a Yorkie Schnauzer mix, but he's a tripod, so he's missing his front right leg that he lost before I got him. So they're all a hoot and a half.
I love that. I love that. I guess I got a couple more questions for you finally. When you look at Volition Veterinary, you all are really spreading the message of quality and time and quality of life and really hope. And I think that's all anyone could ask for. I think about early detection for Moose, and if I would have had more time, because he was gone within about 2 weeks from his diagnosis, and or from the time that I found those lumps, and he was just gone. And I think what you all are doing is just fabulous. And I think the more that we can educate pet parents and the pet owning public, and veterinarians and veterinary technicians, and really getting everybody talking about, let's talk about pet cancer. um, is is cancer curable?
Um, you know, that's a great question. I mean, so certain cancers can be, right? I mean, there are certain cancers, especially Some lumps or bumps that can be cancers, you can surgically remove them and not be worried about them coming back. There are certain cancers that you can even cure with chemotherapy or radiation, depending on the type. But there are cancers where we can't always cure, where it's more so just extending their lifespan. And so I think one thing when I talk to owners about cancer, I think the hard thing is, one, cancer is just a scary word, right? Like, everyone at this point knows someone or has personally experienced cancer in some direct way, whether it be a family member or a friend or an animal. So I think it can be really emotionally triggering for everyone involved when that's brought up, especially in a vet office, and especially if an owner's not expecting it. And some owners already, they've experienced treatment either with another animal or a family member, or financially they just can't go forward with treatment. And so I tell owners, a big thing when I bring up cancer is, my biggest concern is going to be quality of life. I want to make sure your pet is not painful and is living the best life that they can with whatever's going on. I tell owners that not all pets are, to keep in mind, not all pets are going to experience bad side effects from treatment like humans do. We don't tend to see as bad of side effects in pets in regards to like chemotherapy or radiation that we do in humans, which is great. But I always let owners know that first off. And I always tell them, not treating is also always an option. We just have to make sure that they stay comfortable. Palliative care is always a valid option. And we're never fixed on whatever path we take. We can always reevaluate where we're at and move forward in a different way if they feel like treatment's causing more harm than good, or maybe they've decided, hey, I do want to try treating at some part. It, depending on how far we've gone, it may change what we can or can't do at that point. But we can always kind of change paths based on what owners can or can't do and what the pet can or can't do. So I do think quality of life definitely is most important when we're talking about this, for sure.
Dr. Timmons, if you had one comment that you could leave with pet parents if they maybe have found a diagnosis of cancer, what would be the one thing that you want to tell them today?
I would want to tell them their pet getting cancer does not mean that they're a bad pet parent. That is the number one thing I would want them to know. I think that's the number one reaction I get from owners when I'm concerned that their pet has cancer. They're like, what did I do wrong? And I want every single pet owner out there to know that you did absolutely nothing wrong. It is not necessarily related to what you were doing or feeding or how they were living their life at home or anything you were doing. It's unfortunately a mixture of genetics and bad luck. And, there are, and I think that's going to be the biggest thing I'd tell owners is, it's not your fault. You did nothing wrong. You're a good pet parent. You're here today. So let's figure out what we can do to keep your pet comfortable.
I love that. Dr. Timmons, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Jessica, you have anything to add?
No, I don't. Yeah, I think you covered it all.
Wow, I could talk about this forever because it's a special place and a passion of mine, and because of Moose and Moose's March and everything that's going. But we're so thankful for you for joining us. Thank you for joining us today, and we so appreciate you. If people want to get a hold of you to ask questions or to understand more, how can they get a hold of you?
Oh, that's a great question. You can contact the Ask NUQ hotline, and that anything that gets asked, and or even if my name gets mentioned in it, Dr. Becca Timmons, our staff knows to forward it to me. So feel free to contact our hotline.
Got it. Thank you so much. Last question for you. How do you make your pets feel like family?
Oh man, I try to do a photo shoot like once a year with them. I'm actually due to do that. But I don't know. I just like to cuddle them and hang out with them, at night when we're watching TV. And I have a big couch now, so they all get to hang out with me on it, and it's a lot
Even
of
the
fun.
gecko? Does the gecko hang out with you too? Maybe just
The
like over your
tortoise
shoulder?
does actually. The tortoise is in the living room behind me, and she likes to hang out with us. The bird, she just likes to be around. She's not super cuddly, but she likes to be around as well. The geckos can be a bit feisty, so I like to not stress them out and keep them in their cage.
Do they ever nudge you when like their favorite television show comes on? Like, they kind of like nudge you. The turtle comes out of his shell and says, "Hey, I'm ready to watch whatever."
There are some, I do feel like sometimes she knows that we're watching either like The Bachelor or something, and she'll just start climbing at the edge of it, and we just hear her like clawing at it. I'm just like, what are you doing, Clover? But I swear, especially the
There's someone
Golden
else who
Bachelor
watches
right
The Bachelor
now.
besides me.
Oh
We
my
were having a
goodness.
discussion about earrings with your colleague Devin from Bachelor in Paradise,
Yeah,
Brandon, I think that it's Braden, whatever his name is.
Brayden. I can't believe Brayden is on that
It's got the
show.
earrings going on there. Shout out Blake Munoz. We'd love to have you on our show right now. We know that you love animals. Come on and see us at Pets or Family. Dr. Becca, thank you for joining us. We loved having you. It has been our privilege and our honor to have you. And let's talk about pet cancer. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You guys take care.
All right. That was a good interview.
I am fascinated. I am fascinated by the research that's going on right now. I'm fascinated by where things are going and knowing more and understanding more and the possibility that of quality of life and understanding more about this disease that impacts what is it, one in six dogs, just crazy numbers, and the amount of dogs, what is it, over the age of 7-8 years old, their chances of getting cancer increase so much. And so early detection, early detection is the key.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was what you really took away from that, Jessica, that conversation?
I mean, I think it's just the fact that, it's when you hear the word cancer, you don't need to be afraid. I mean, my sister's dog just recently found out that he had cancer, you know what I mean? And
Right.
they got rid of it. I mean, he's just got to be monitored. I mean, they got it all in the surgery, you know what I mean? But,
Okay.
if it grows back, we just have to go in right away, you know what I mean? But
Right.
they caught it right away, but it's not something to panic over, you know what I mean? And they didn't do anything wrong. They got them in early enough. So,
Yeah. That was an interesting point she said at the very end, saying, that it's not your fault, that you are a good pet parent. And because I know, I think I blame myself with Moose. If I wouldn't have been at Talladega, if I wouldn't have been away, if I would have taken more time, if I would have done more things, that maybe I would have had more time and more and given him more quality of life. But I think that's the key too. It is about quality of life, and is that pup, and I know feline tests are coming out later, but um, is that pet getting quality of life, and the experiences that you're getting them, are they in pain, and just relying on the beautiful recommendation and the advice of your veterinarian and understanding what they have to say. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, I think that's probably the best thing to remember too. You know what I mean? Go by the advice of
Yeah.
the veterinarian.
Yeah, definitely. So Jessica, this has been, I've got my head's like spinning with all these questions and things like that about pet cancer and wanting to know more. We have a really big thing going on, and that is we have Giving Tuesday coming up on November the 29th. At Pets or Family, Moose's March is our charity. It is a 501c3 organization, and we are raising money to provide early detection kits to shelters throughout the country. We're also going to be providing direct support to pets and families in need, whether it's education or financial resources. We're working with our board and many people on how to best give with that. But again, November 29th is Giving Tuesday. We're kicking that off now, obviously. And it is our goal to raise $100,000. We are at $31,000 now as of this podcast taping. And the more money that we are able to raise for Giving Tuesday on behalf of Mrs. March can support pets and people and their families. As you know, pets are family.
Right, right. Yep. So we're going to include a link in
Yeah.
our notes. We're going to have a link on the website, on our social pages. So if you feel like you want to help donate, please do.
Thank you, Jessica. What a beautiful episode this has been.
Yep. So on that note, how do you make your pets feel like family? And we'll see you next week. Bye. Thanks for listening to Pets Are Family. You can find us on all the channels now. Yes, all the channels now. So make sure you share us with your friends, your families, and your coworkers, and anybody that has a pet. Make sure you like us, give us your feedback, tell us if anything that you want us to talk about, all that fun stuff. You can reach me at jessica@petsourfamily.net or trisha@petsourfamily.net. Thank you for everything that you guys do, but make sure you like us, subscribe, check us out on YouTube. You can always see what we're up to. And we want to thank all of our sponsors, all of the people that support us. We love every one of you, and we can't thank you enough. And remember, check out Moose's March. We're doing a big webinar on November 2nd, and we want everyone to come. We're going to be talking about pet cancer, and we have some amazing folks that are going to be doing this webinar. So come check us out, moosesmarch.com, moosesmarch.com. Come check us out. Talk to you guys soon. We'll see you next week. Bye.